Hello again, and welcome back to MasterMind Minutes. My name's Gary Occhigrosso. I am the managing partner and founder for Franchise Growth Solutions. As you know, that's this big poster behind me. And MasterMind Minutes, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, is a webcast and podcast designed to have one expert on, and we ask one question and we get one expert answer. We do this typically in minutes, not hours. So we always have fun doing it. We realize that it's a bit of a tease. So at the end of the program, we'll ask our guest to give his contact information. And more importantly, if you're watching it on YouTube, all of that information will be in the link. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or Google, you will also find that in the welcome page when you download the app. So today, it really is my honor to have my guest today, Jermaine Miller, who, first I want to tell you, the first time Jermaine and I were before I introduce him, the first time we were in a room together, a few years ago at a radio program on here in New York. And it's just one of those things when you meet people and you say, you know what? I'm not meeting this person for the first time. This is a reunion of somehow, like there were past souls that kind of, meshed because instantaneously we got connected and I remember we did a great interview. We had a great show. So let me tell you about Jermaine. First of all, he's the founder of Mill Real Estate and the CEO of Jermaine Miller Consulting. Prior to launching Mill RE in 2015, and that's just around right after that was when we had connected. Jermaine had carved his way to being one of the top real estate professionals in New York City. This is after being homeless and starting with only 93 cents in his bank account, and he can talk about that and tell you about that. In late 2017, seriously, after living the dream of becoming a business owner, as well as opening up 3 real estate offices in less than 2 years, a really monumental accomplishment, Jermaine launched Jermaine Miller Consulting, which helps to motivate, train, coach, and strategize with people as well as corporations on how to be the greatest versions of themselves through the science of personal achievement, definiteness of purpose, and by living their dreams. He is also a best-selling author of 2 and soon to be 3 books. The first one, Wake Up and Win, which I have right here. And I'll tell you, look, it's all ratty. I don't know if you could see this. It's all ratty on the edges here because this is like a workbook for me. You see, I got all my little notes here, all my little highlights, and I mean, I just write in this book. And the new one, which I haven't gotten to, is Wake Up and Live. Both of these are available on Amazon. This one I haven't gotten into, but I'm sure it is every bit as good, if not better, than Wake Up and Win. So, Jermaine, I know, a long introduction. I'm excited to have you here. Before we get into the question, how you doing? Tell us what you've been doing. Tell us about, Jermaine Miller Consulting, and just tell us.
Yeah, well, first things first, Gary, I appreciate the opportunity for being on this podcast today. I don't take moments like this lightly. Anytime I'm invited somewhere to speak, talk, share my story, I'm grateful for that. So I appreciate that opportunity today. What's been going on the last couple of months, as you know, is what we call a pandemic, an epidemic, a scamdemic, whatever's been going on the last couple of months, we don't know. But here's what we must know. We must know what our future holds for ourselves, so that regardless of what's going on in the White House, regardless of what's going on in the world, regardless of what's going on the outside, that what's going on in our house is all that matters. And that's going after our dreams and our goals. So over the last few months, I had actually worked for maybe about 2.5 years to get to a schedule that I had for 2020. I mean, my schedule for speaking and traveling across the country was something that I dreamed of. I imagined it. I envisioned it. And the only thing that could stop this train that I had worked so hard to get moving was a pandemic. And when I really thought about that and I really sat down and I started thinking about why these things were happening, I was reminded by what James Allen once said. He said, circumstances only reveal who we are to ourselves. So when I was sitting there, I started saying to myself, you know what? In the midst of all of this stuff that's going on in life right now, what is life revealing to us? You know, we've been running away from that person that's inside the mirror. Now we can't run away from that person. There's an African proverb that says, if there's no enemy within, the enemy without can't do us no harm. So once I started really looking into that, I started asking myself this question: in the midst of all of this stuff, who do you want to be? What do you have? And ultimately, what do you want to become? And I want to ask you that too, Gary, today. What impact do you want to leave, or what impactful meaning do you want to leave on people's lives because you showed up because of this pandemic?
Mhm. That's a great question. Usually I'm the one doing the questioning here, but uh, I would tell you that if I were to start to outline my purpose, it took me 60 years to get there. Although in hindsight, I think I was always doing it and getting ready and practicing it. It just evolved into something better. For me, I've been blessed to work in a business and in a career where I've gathered a lot of information about a topic that is not only important to people in terms of how they can accumulate wealth and build their own business and really have their own strategy and their own destiny from a career point of view. And at this particular point, I would tell you that my goal, my purpose is to share that information. And I do it not only as part of my company, but more importantly, as I believe, I do that through my speaking engagements, what I call the gig and the free economy. I'm doing a lot of writing. I put stuff out there. I'll meet with people. I send people books all the time. Actually, I've sent Wake Up and Win out to a few people. So I would say that the mark I want to leave on the world is kind of this library of knowledge that I put in my head and categorized it and then shared it with people so that I could save them some time in finding out the information. I don't save them time in the learning and in the execution. They got to do that on their own.
Right.
But I feel like I can give them the tools. How did I do? Is that an okay answer?
Great, man.
It kind of leads me to the question, what you've said, up to this point, the question that I really wanted to ask you and what I would love to hear you share is, and you mentioned it, the pandemic, we've got a tumultuous election year, we've got social unrest, we just got so much,
Many things,
I don't know, energy, negative energy floating around out there. How do you see it? How does one prepare or stay positive so that their future can be positive and that they can achieve their goals? I mean, one of the things, before you answer the question, one of the things, and I learned a lot from this book, but one of the things that stuck with me, you ask people a question, tell me 3 things you want. And actually you point out, you say, I've asked people, tell me 3 things you want, and you usually get people telling you 3 things they don't want.
Right.
and that stuck with me because when I hear people speak now, my radar is up, and I'm listening in a very different way. And I'm listening to people either tell me what they want, what their goals are, or kind of what I'm going to use the word complaining about, what they don't want. And they're not really doing anything to change it. So we have a lot of people like that now because of the current situation. So what can you share with us to keep people motivated and positive to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, most people don't get what they want out of life because they never decide what it is that they do want. They only decide what they do want after what they don't want appears. And when what they don't want appears, they start spending all of their energy, all of their time, all of their effort, all of their commitment trying to get the things that they don't want in their life out of their life instead of just being laser focused on actually accomplishing the dream. And I think a lot of people, what started happening is we don't imagine anymore. We operate out of our memory. So we don't imagine anymore. I'm thinking about like my sons, when they talk about the things that they want to accomplish in life and the things that they want to do, they have this incredible imagination. Einstein once said, imagination is the preview of things that come in our life. But as we get older and as we become adults, we no longer operate out of our imagination. Here's what we do. We operate out of reality. And reality says, because all of this stuff is going on in the world, all of this stuff is going on in my life, the appearance of things are suggesting to me that I can't live, I can't be, I can't do all of the things that I wanted to do. So I don't go after the things that I want anymore. It's funny, I was just talking to some kids the other day. We were talking about how to get what you want out of life, how to accomplish your dreams. And a lot of us, the reason why we don't accomplish those dreams and goals anymore is because we want the dream and the goal, but we want it at a discount. It's like going, I want my dream and I want my goal, but I'll take it at an outlet price. I don't want the full price for my dream. I don't want to pay for it. Give it to me, but give it to me at a discount. So now we're not giving anything in exchange for it. And the things that are happening are not happening for us to get caught up in what's happening. It's happening so that we can be a light or an example to somebody else. It's almost like we're so focused on what we're going through, we don't know how impactful and how powerful we can be to somebody else, because some of the things that we went through wasn't for me, it was for somebody else. So how do we get aligned? How do we get focused in a time like this? Well, you first got to know what you want. You know, that's ultimately the key. And we can't focus on the how to get what we want. How can I get it if I got the money? How can I get it if I was in shape? How can I get it if things were better? We can't focus on the how to. We have to focus on what it is that we want. It's like, I got to decide. That's number one. Number two, I got to write these things down. And a lot of us, because we're operating out of our memory, the last time I went to go after my goals and my dreams, my memory says, listen, man, every time you step out there and try to go after something, you just don't accomplish it. So the dream or the goal isn't large enough for me anymore to go after, because every time I tried to do something before, I just failed or fell apart.
It's absolutely tremendous what you just said, and I agree. People are they're focused on reality, and they're looking at the things that are maybe the obstacles. You know, you tell a great story in Wake Up and Win. I'll paraphrase it here, about the herd of zebra crossing the river.
Oh God,
that's and they're. And it's a great analogy. I mean, and the goal is obviously like what the zebra who know what they want. They want to get to the other side. Okay. Right. However, the river is filled with crocodiles.
Right.
And the zebra who know what they want and are focused on getting to the other side, they make it. However, the zebras who are like in the river looking around at the crocodiles, they get eaten, they get bitten, because they don't know what they want. They think, well, I don't want to get bit by the crocodile. Right. Whereas the real goal is, I want to get to the other side of the river. Exactly. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And to just kind of backtrack on that story, the zebras, this is something that they do every year. It's a migration. It's one of the largest migrations in Africa. They're getting from one side of Africa to the next side of South Africa, because the land in one area of Africa is drying up. So in order for them to survive, they got to go through this migration. And that's what happens to all of us. I think one of the biggest challenges that we face is we want to be prosperous. We want success. We want love. We want happiness. We want all of the great things, but we would rather stay in something that we know than venture off into the heaven. It's kind of like, I would rather stay in my known hell than venture off to a strange heaven, even though in that strange heaven, everything could be much greater than what it is right now. So those zebras, I mean, listen, they knew it. The instinct says, listen, we got to get from where we are right now. And I think even now, in the midst of all of the stuff that's going on, people aren't focused on their future. They're not focused on getting to where they see themselves. The image is scarred. They don't believe what's possible for others is also possible for them. They just don't believe anymore. So that inner fuel, those inner conversations, that inner drive is just not there. So it's not pulling them through the dark times, the dark moments, the things that's happening behind the scenes that nobody else sees. It doesn't fuel them anymore. So they wake up, as Thomas Carlyle once said, most people wake up in neutral. They like a ship without a sail. If the wind blows west, they go west. If the wind blows east, they go east. If landfall should appear, which is their destination, they have no clue that that's where they're going. And that's where people are right now. They don't know where they're going because they never decide what it is that they want, Gary. And so the zebras, they knew that. They said, listen, man, I have to go through all of this stuff. Yes, I do. I don't want to fight lions. I don't want to fight hyenas. I don't want to fight chiefs. I don't want to do any of that. But the bottom line is I definitely don't want to stay where I'm at. I'm not going to survive there. And it's so powerful because even through this migration, and they finally got through all of that stuff, right when they were getting ready to get to where they were going to go, the toughest part of their life became apparent. And that is they can't swim. The water gets as high as their nose, and there are now crocodiles in the water. So they sat there on the sideline for 30 minutes trying to make a decision whether or not they should go in the water. They all said, listen, we don't have a choice. I'm not going back to where I was at before. I got to get to my goal. And that's exactly where we have to be. Napoleon Bonaparte once said, I see only my objection. The obstacle must give way. So what that means is I got to be laser focused on where I'm going, regardless of if it looks like what I don't want it to look like. I got to see my dream.
Unbelievable. Just totally inspirational, Jermaine. I mean, it's amazing. Listen, before we finish up, I want you to just talk about the books. I mean, Wake Up and Win. I remember we sat in a TikTok diner on 8th Avenue, and you told me you were writing a book, and I said, well, Jermaine, you are such a busy guy. How are you writing a book? And you told me, and again, if I recall the story, you were like doing an hour a day. You were going to write 1 hour a day, and you were going to just do it. It didn't matter how long it took, an hour a day, you were going to get it done. So maybe you could tell us about the inspiration for Wake Up and Win, and then you quickly followed it up with Wake Up and Live. So were these both inside of you at the same time, or did Wake Up and Live come because you wrote Wake Up and Win?
So I believe everything that we ever want to materialize or manifest in this world is already inside of us. We just need to be inspired. Like, we need to be inspired to do something that's monumental or life-changing. And so the story with Wake Up and Win was, I didn't write the book until I met my mentor, Mr. Les Brown. Mr. Les Brown pulled me to the side. He said, do you have a book already? And I said, no, but I'm thinking about writing the book. He said, good. If you write the book, I'll write the forward to it. That's my trade-off. And I'm like, what? You want to write a book for me? But here's what was so powerful. It took me 2 years to write Wake Up and Win. And through that 2-year process, I went through some of the most challenging times of my life. And that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people don't write books, because they're not aware of the experience that they're going through that they can actually use in their book. They're just focusing on what they're going through. So I literally took everything that I was going through in this 2-year period, and I was documenting it. Everything, every obstacle, every hurdle, every setback, all of those things I turned into opportunities, and I put that inside of the book. And what was so incredible about this journey of 2 years of writing this book was my relationship with Les became such an incredible relationship that the forward that he wrote was a real forward because we became close in the process. So I looked at that as an experience just for us to actually even get close together and have the relationship that we have right now. But in this, I trusted a company to publish this book for me. I paid them $6,000 to publish this book. They told me they were going to do all these great things for my book. And after I finished writing and the book was done with editing, I went to go speak to the publishing company to talk about, hey, the next steps. And the person who owned the publishing company said, you know, you still owe us X amount of dollars, and we're not moving forward until you pay the X amount of dollars. And I'm like, I've already given you $6,000. What else do you need from me to say I'm committed to this process? And what happened was, in that time, I started thinking about me not wanting to go through that again. Like, I never wanted to feel that experience going through a book. And I actually didn't want anybody else to go through that experience. So Wake Up and Win was an experience for me. And because I was speaking often, I always just sold a book while I was out. Wake Up and Live was a completely different experience. In fact, I wasn't even thinking about writing this book because I was working on my book that's coming out in December, The Power of a Mindset Switch. So I was focused on that. But the pandemic, I was sitting on my couch one day and I was watching CNN and constant negative news. Everybody knows that. And every single day I'm watching MSNBC, CNN, all these other network stations that are talking about riots. They're talking about looting. They're talking about the death of this person, the death of that person, pandemic, COVID, all of these things. And every time I turned off the television, I was even more depressed. I was even more frustrated. I'm dealing with all of this anxiety. And one day I said to myself, Gary, I said, I'm not watching this anymore. I can't do it. And right before I was getting ready to turn off the television, the cameraman zoomed in on something that changed my life forever. In the midst of the fires, in the midst of the riots, in the midst of the looting, in the midst of the violence, in the midst of everything that was going on, this cameraman zoomed in on a person who was sleeping on a bench with the covers pulled over their eyes. And I asked myself this question. I said, where am I mentally, spiritually, physically in one of the most trying times in the world? Am I laying somewhere mentally, spiritually with the covers pulled over my eyes and I can't do anything about that? Am I living my dream or am I living a nightmare? And immediately I jumped up, turned off the television, went into my office, and it took me 6 days to write the book. I did not leave my office until the book was done.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to be digging into it really soon. Now, you mentioned Les Brown, and I listen to Les on YouTube all the time. And, one of the things that he's inspired, many things he's inspired me about, but one of the things that he talks about is being hungry, being ready, and like, how do you get there? And he always talks about supply more service than you're paid for at that moment, because there's something greater beyond. I think, when we talk about a lot of the work that you've done, everything is, we're building on everything. One thing leads to the next, to the next, to the next. So I guess that, Wake Up and Win, you was the experience of putting it together and writing it. And it sounded now, like when you're telling me now, 2 years and you went through all of this, sounded like, kind of an arduous process. Whereas Wake Up and Live was an inspiration. You were at where you were at that moment, and it came out of you. So tell me now, I think you have another one coming out. You got to tell us about, give us a little preview.
Yeah, so October 13th, I'm releasing only in the ebook format, Unshakable Focus. It's faith to overcome circumstances using positive suggestions. And that's one of the things that we suffer from. We don't speak highly of ourselves enough. So it's one of those things where the more you have a target, the more that you're focused on something, you can constantly tell yourself that you can make it. That's what that book is all about. And so it's just a kind of like a bridge between Wake Up and Live and my new book that's coming out in December. And I wanted to do something special for everybody, and that was to have it published for free.
Great. That's fantastic. Yep. That gift economy is really, really important.
Of course.
Yep. So Jermaine, and again, for those of you listening or watching, Jermaine, how can someone get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you? What's the best way? And again, remember, we'll put it all out in writing on the podcast, but how can somebody get in touch with you?
Yeah, so all my social media handles are the same as Jermaine Miller, nice and easy. Or they can email the office at jermaine@jermainemiller.com.
Yeah, I love your email address, by the way. It's really easy. It's really easy to remember. Well, listen, I cannot thank you enough for spending some time. I know you're super busy, but I can't thank you enough for being with us. We got to have you back on, talk about the new book, talk about, actually, we didn't even touch on your other business, the whole real estate thing. Yeah. So, and we will definitely do that, but it's so good to see you. I hope to see you again live and in person.
Yes, we got to do that.
Any last thought you want to leave us with?
No, I mean, the last thought, I was writing something this morning. In fact, it was about my time that I was on the airplane. And I want to leave that with everyone today. I was on an airplane a few months ago before all this craziness took place. and the plane was getting ready to take off on a tarmac. It's going around, and we're getting ready to take off, and the plane comes to an abrupt stop. And even then, the state of economy, if a plane just comes to an abrupt stop, we're concerned about what's going on, right? So I start looking around, and I start paying attention to the people who are around me, and it looks to me that some people were going after their dreams, some people were going on vacation, some people were going to start their life over, some people were going to do something they never done before. But in order for them to do that, the plane needed to get to that destination. And so the pilot, knowing that the people on the plane were a little uneasy, he gets on a loudspeaker. Here's what he says: "We can't move this plane until a family of ducks crosses the runway." And so I'm saying to myself, wow, we got this big, huge plane here, and we can't get off the ground until the runway is clear. And so I started thinking about that a little bit more, and I started thinking about the things that we go through in life. We're these powerful human beings, right? We can accomplish anything that we've ever wanted to accomplish, but we stay grounded because our runways aren't clear. It doesn't matter. And even if it's small as the smallest duck that crossed the runway, we're bogged down by those negative inner conversations, those negative self-images that we have of ourselves. And when we were in the air, I started thinking about this. I said, there are people that are waiting on you to impact and empower them because you made it to your destination. You made it to your dream. And that's what I want to leave everybody here on this podcast. There are people waiting for you to live your dream so you can impact and empower them to live theirs. I can't do it, but I know you can.
Absolutely fantastic. I love you, brother. I really do.
I
Hey,
love you too,
the
man.
books, Wake Up and Win, Wake Up and Live. The ebook will be out soon. Jermaine, thank you so much. And as I said, I hope to see you again, like in person live.
Yes, my brother.
All right. Be well. I love you.
I'll talk to you, man. Take care.